aliens, extraterrestrials. These are things that I think a lot of people don't really consider and think about in detail. And it oftentimes feels like these are the things that are quite mysterious. Now, a little bit of background, a little bit of history about extraterrestrials and UFOs, or unidentified flying objects, is back in the 1950s, there was an event that had occurred when they had multiple jet fighters in the military who had crashed across an object that was flying across the sky. And this object had actually gone, and it had flown more quickly and more, and the technology was more advanced than they had ever imagined. Given that these two pilots had crashed into this aircraft, had tried to crash, into this aircraft, but it had failed, and the aircraft they titled was called Saucer. So the government had devised this program called the Saucer. Throughout the time period from the 1950s to about 1955, there were various sightings and recordings of extraterrestrial, or quote-unquote UFOs, unidentified flying objects that are described in various forms. A lot of them were saucers. They had a silver edge. The descriptions and the graphics were very similar to what people today would see in movies. A lot of people today, they have seen or known of certain types of alien races, one of which is known as the gray ones, and they have seen those aliens, right? They have known of different types of races that have existed. But when you look at the evidence and you look at what's been revealed in the FBI and the CIA's website, you have one particular case. There's 2,000 plus documents that have been recently released in a few years that have been shown in the FBI, and it's really interesting because there's a lot of taboo, there's a lot of science fiction, there's a lot of mystery surrounding these ideas of UFOs. But when you look at extraterrestrial life, you look at the evidence, there's a lot of different individuals who have risked their lives, particularly people in the military. We have individuals like David Wilcox. We have individuals like who had done over 3,000 plus autopsies on various beings, extraterrestrial in nature, and you can hear them. You can go to their website. You can go on Gaia.com and you can look them up. And then you also have various authors that have written books, such as Chariots of the Gods by another author and other individuals. But when you look at the nature of reality and you look at a lot of the universe, extraterrestrial life forms, UFOs, alien races, they're all looked into consideration very deeply and highly. What I find is interesting, though, is when you look at the alien races, when you look at the individuals that had devised a lot of these experiments, you see that there's a correlation between the information. 1950, you had a lot of evidence of unidentified flying objects going through the Earth's atmosphere. Right, and then further on you have Roswell, another famous case that individuals talk about. Now the entire history, the entire knowledge of extraterrestrials is very far advanced, and there's a lot of information. But one thing that I do know is that there are various races, there are various knowledge, and there's various things that go about from looking at UFOs, in particular extraterrestrials involved, and those in the military that are involved. There's countless cases. One particular case I'd like to talk about, to get into more in-depth and information on, is the case related to Roswell, because that case is one in which I'm well aware of. Then I like to expound upon the various races that exist. Then I like to talk about Antarctica and the Draconians, and then I like to talk about the secret space program, and then I like to talk about other different ideas that I have come across, some of which are disturbing in nature and others of which are considered questionable. The first thing I like to talk about, like I mentioned, is Roswell. Now, people don't know this, or some people do. They've heard of Roswell, New Mexico. They've heard of that 1955. They had an object that flew into Roswell, New Mexico. Many people didn't know what it was. When people found, and the government had actually looked at this item that was crashing through the sky, they had noticed that it would look like it was a spacecraft. And they had seen it from the outside, and they had actually recovered bodies from that spacecraft, And the day following, when individuals were wondering what is that thing that came from the sky, the government had pronounced and actually said that that thing was a spacecraft. And people were actually wondering, and some people were, there was a mass hysteria during the public media about this idea, and you had even our president talking about this at the time, and John F. Kennedy. But even during that time period, you had him, but then you also had those individuals wondering what it was. But the following day, the government had denied that it was a spacecraft or UFO and called it a weather balloon. So you can be the judge on that notion, but even when that had happened, there was plenty of sightings, plenty of recordings that same day, plenty of photos that were kept secret, and a lot of the information today is still classified by the government. But there's just a lot of questions you wonder. Like, what is this item what is this being that came from the sky, right? What is this flying saucer, this UFO, this object that came crashing down the sky? What was its purpose? What was its meaning here on Earth? What was it doing? Where did it come from? Right? What was it planning on doing? None of us will really ever know that, but what we do know from the evidence is that there was an item, a UFO, that crashed to the Roswell, New Mexico, into the Earth. It left a massive crater, and that we do know that the military had come in suits, biohazard suits, came and picked up the item and had the military dissected the item and moved it. And there are leaked footage and photos of this particular Roswell, New Mexico extraterrestrial that you can see online. There's also a lot of evidence too in regards to just different people's cases and versions of the various life forms of extraterrestrials that have existed. And there is a lot of different individuals in the military who have given their accounts on extraterrestrials. When you think of the advanced life forms and you think of extraterrestrials, you think of the races that have existed, or you think of human beings that exist on this planet. Extraterrestrials are far more advanced, and their species is evolved in different ways compared to what we know here on this Earth. We look at the universe, we look at how vast the universe is, see all the billions and millions of stars, and the extraterrestrial races that we know to exist or that have been categorized, and it goes even back further before the 1950s. We have even 1942, there's a book that I came across called the KGB, Alien Races, and that's a book that consists of alien races that a KGB member from the KGB Russian Federation was given during World War II on the various types of alien races that were given that exist on this Earth. And there's many books on extraterrestrials. There's also other different types of books that you can come across online in the internet. But I think this book is really interesting because it revealed a lot of secret information about various alien races and aliens that exist. All these extraterrestrial beings that come from different portions of different parts of our galaxy. When you look at them, you have all the different types. You have one particular one I want to talk about, the gray ones, which people are familiar with. And you have different versions. There's a whole list, a whole plethora of them. I'm not too familiar with all the different types. I just know of a handful. I know of the Draconians, which are a large reptilian race. They're about 8 to 9 feet tall, reptilian skin. They have sunken eyes. They look a lot like various reptiles, but human-like in form. And their objective is to rule and conquer the planet. They've done a lot on this Earth as to what we know. And they have tried to establish various governments and initiatives to lower down our technology and allow human beings to weaken so that they can have what their way on the planet and destroy the Earth. We have the gray ones, which people are familiar with, which is just an alien that's gray. It has a big head, kind of like a balloon, and it has almond-shaped eyes, black eyes, and it is known for taking human beings and abducting them, putting them in their spacecrafts, and doing various types of work on them. And a lot of this, this is reports. When I say these things of what these beings are, these are reports that have been mentioned. You can look at the FBI's website. You can look on various documentaries. You can read various books on this. All this information has been accounted for by various people all across the world who've never known each other, and a lot of it is very succinct. So what I'm saying isn't just random information or crazy, far-fetched, out there thinking. It's just things that have been shown by individuals all throughout the world. Particularly, a lot of them are in the United States. But when you look at the gray ones, for example, I mentioned, they're about 4 feet tall, really short beings, and they have long, fingernails, not long fingernails, but kind of human-like features, but very short. And then you have other races. You have the Arturians, which are large, like human hominin race, like Nordic in nature. They have blonde hair. They're tall, about 7 or 8 feet tall, and they're living supposedly in Antarctica. That's mentioned. And their nature and their being, they're sent to assist the races of humans, an advanced society. And then we also have other races too. We have another race that looks a lot like reptilians, but more like plants. It's a race, I don't know the name of it, but it is like a plant race. They're about 5 or 6 feet tall, some of them shorter, and they have these webbed fingers. So in between their fingers they have webbings, and their hands like reptiles, and they look a lot like human, but they apparently have beautiful skin, and they look a lot like certain types of animals. And then there's other types of races that exist. There's a whole section, a whole race of them that go on and continue. But what I want to continue on is, after Roswell, the alien races, right? We have UFOs, and then we have all this speculation about extraterrestrial life. Extraterrestrials, UFOs, the afterlife, things like these concepts and these ideas. What's really important to focus on is that highly intelligent life forms that could or may exist or do exist, that exist among us, it's up for speculation. But I think a lot of it is finding the truth and searching for the truth. So we should look into it in our lives, and we should see the extraterrestrials, UFOs, and beings, how they could affect us, and the importance of it. Because many people, when they live in their lives, they don't really consider, how could advanced life forms, right, or UFOs, how could aliens ever affect me in my life? Why should I care about aliens? Well, if aliens do exist, there's a lot of questions that will change about creation. For example, why is there a God? Why do we have the Bible? How does society thrive? What do we do with these aliens? How do we communicate with them, right? What is their purpose here on this planet? What are we going to do with these aliens? Because there are a lot of aliens that exist that we have no idea what their intentions are. And some of these aliens we do know because they've communicated with us. But then there's a lot of classified information that's hard to talk about in regards to these extraterrestrials. And a lot of people will deny it and say that this isn't true, or what I'm saying is completely bullshit and there's no need for it. But in reality, it seems as if there's a lot of aspects in total where people will see things and hear things and witness things and not talk about it. And those that do end up getting brandished or killed. They end up getting injured severely simply for telling observations, things that they saw. And it's very mysterious because we live in a planet, right, where people kill one another, people are violent, but there's always mysterious things that exist. And we have many accounts of various aspects in our society. We have people who've experienced things, people who've experienced extraterrestrials coming from the sky, people who've actually witnessed them in public, people who have seen them, right? Some people who claim to have seen them in outer space. Like another thing I wanted to mention too is we have these claims that Neil Armstrong, right? When Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin had gone to the moon, Neil Armstrong, after 2 minutes of reporting for some time, and this is, Neil Armstrong had gone to the moon somewhere in the 1950s. I don't know the exact day, year, but I do know that after Neil Armstrong had landed on the moon, after the broadcast recording was landed, he landed on the moon, and when he landed with Buzz Aldrin, after some time, there was a broadcast that was taken off. And that broadcast was taken off, and in that broadcast there was information on he said after 2 minutes that he had actually seen extraterrestrials, that he had seen a lunar base on the moon, and that these extraterrestrials had communicated with him, or he had known that they were there. And that many people today will say, and there's many ufologists and people who study this, researchers, that the moon is used as just long before humans existed. It is a place where minerals are mined for, and a lot of materials are mined for within the planet, and within the on the moon itself. And the moon Excuse me. It's used as a means to which extraterrestrials travel on to take these minerals to their planets or wherever it is that they're traveling on their spaceships. And human beings had come across them even then. And the government, we even had Ronald Reagan too, another point I wanted to mention. Ronald Reagan even mentioned, he said that if there was an extraterrestrial life that existed, human beings would have to gather together to take care of that life, to basically defend our lives due to an extraterrestrial force. These are presidents of the United States. We have photos above the White House that also have shown to have alien spacecrafts, UFOs, right? Flying saucers. Then we had recently this event, it was claimed of SpaceX. It may not be extraterrestrial in nature, but the technology, I'm sure, is very advanced and could come from some form of extraterrestrial life. We had the sky parted recently here, somewhere here in California, Southern California. We had SpaceX program working on that. And the technology that's been used, a lot of it's been given to us. There's a lot of leaked information. There's a lot of information out there that has to be parched and pieced together about extraterrestrials, UFOs, and the universe itself in regards to the beginnings and origins of life. But I feel as if human beings don't know our origins. We don't know where we came from. And we may be just simply descendants of alien races. We may be more far advanced than people give us credit for. And our bodies are so more complex that it's difficult for us to say. So the extraterrestrial life itself, the philosophy of it all, it's very complex. But I do want to say that when you do talk about experiences, or I do talk about my knowledge, I think about the usage of extraterrestrials and their information or their knowledge and the things that I've read about, the things that I've seen and how to apply it into my life and how to see it that way. But I think that from extraterrestrials and these sightings of UFOs and advanced life, we should take into consideration, we should think about, what do these extraterrestrials want from us, right? What is their purpose here on this planet, like I said before? And what can we do with extraterrestrials? We have to admit that extraterrestrials are real. We can't have this fear mentality, this tactic that they're not real, that they don't exist. And we have to really look into the depths of extraterrestrials and their purpose on this planet and how they could help us. Some help us and some destroy us for the means of creating a better world. And there's also been accounts too of multiple type of what are known as these blue extraterrestrials or hippie ones that have come to the planet, that have gone to JFK and talked about denuclearization, de-armament, right? Reinstallment, changing of military tactics. But the president had denied them and they had flown away. But this far advanced technology that we've witnessed and seen of going in all directions in the sky and fleeing in less than 1 or 2 seconds immediately, right? This far sophisticated propulsion system of technology and this space flying saucer is too far advanced for human beings. And we use a lot of these technologies to build a lot of our spacecrafts today and a lot of our programs. Space programs that we use in the United States that are considered classified. And when you look at all of that, when you see all that, you see all the information there, we have various other programs too, such as the Secret Space Program. The Secret Space Program was developed by the government in about 1950 or so, and it was created to establish communication between extraterrestrials and human beings. But the Secret Space Program wasn't revealed until a lot later. And there's a good book about it called The Secret Space Program, and that book talks a lot about the origin of the Secret Space Program, what it does, etc., and the evidence that's shown through extraterrestrial life. And I find that the Secret Space Program, we also have there's this Galactic International Federation, similar to Star Trek. There's a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of strange stuff, but you also have ideas that are spoken about of extraterrestrial races and human beings that have met together, that have been abducted, that are shown into this world, and for the purpose of revealing and showing information to the world. This has been quite an experience, I believe, for these people, for the military and those involved. And I look at the Secret Space Program, I look at this information, I wonder, what is the truth behind this? What is the belief? Is it far-fetched? Should I believe it? Should I not believe it? Should I, close my mind to this? Is it just silly fables? Or is it true that these aliens do exist? There is a federation. There are I forgot to mention too, there are slaves in Antarctica. Are there people that are suffering on this planet? Are there civilizations that are underneath this world, underneath the ground, right? There are claims by other authors that there are secret underground civilizations underneath the earth, that there are civilizations underneath Antarctica, that there are Nazis living on planet Mars who have their own slaves and civilization, that there are aliens amongst us that live in various parts that we're unaware of, that they're even roaming amongst us and we can't even see these different species. So these claims should be examined in full depth, right? They should be looked at, and we should see and we should try to apply a lot of critical thinking and logic to these topics. And with the critical thinking and logic, we should really look at, right, first of all, what are these things? Where are these things? How are these things here? Why are they here? And what is their purpose? Simple, basic reasoning. But then we should also apply, if such events had occurred, A led to B, then what led to C, and then develop the notion and ideas that extraterrestrials could be, who they are, who they not are. And when we look at the extraterrestrial races, or we look at what people claim is true, we should do the research. It's interesting how after 50 plus years, right, after Roswell, all these FBI documents had finally been declassified. How is that true? I've looked at the FBI's website. There are many cases there's information still classified and revealed, but so many documents have been finally revealed to the public that you could research and read online about claims of extraterrestrials from all different places of the world. You have places in Russia, Africa, right? You have places in Asia, you have places in North America, all throughout the world, of events and occurrences that scientists, human beings, all people in the world have seen and looked at, have evidence of, photographs, for example, of various different types of extraterrestrial life, or what they consider as UFOs, technology that's beyond our comprehension, a lot of which has been stolen and used, incorporated into the military, and even today, the technologies that we have today. And with all that into consideration, I feel like there's a lot more to look at and observe with these videos, these thoughts, and this information on extraterrestrials. But I just want us to embrace and think about, extraterrestrials, their life, right? What is the importance of extraterrestrials? How are they used in the real world, and how can we look at them again and think about in our lives? We go about our daily lives and we live our lives, but we don't really think about the things that are around us, the things that are above us, the things that are below us, right? We just live our lives in a different way. But I think we should think about extraterrestrials and a lot more, and we should think about how extraterrestrials really impact our lives, like the things that we have in our lives. Does it come from extraterrestrials, or do we just have them because of our technology, right? Does the government have the solutions and the problems to solve world hunger and the energy problem, or are these things simply not advanced enough? Do we not have what we have, right? Did it really take us this long to develop what we have? And there's plenty of books, there's plenty of research that's been conducted by various authors on the subject. But I think that a lot of what's happened with extraterrestrials, a lot of what's been occurring recently in the past decade or so, ever since Roswell, the first case, has been exponentially increasing with extraterrestrial activities. And I think that we should really take these topics seriously, and we should really think about extraterrestrials and unidentified flying objects and the technology and how it affects our lives. And we should really question and seek answers to these truths, because if aliens are real, if extraterrestrials are real, that means that either one, there is no God; two, if a God exists, God created these aliens, or this world is just far too complex, more than we could ever imagine. There's things and mysteries of this universe that we can never understand, right? Things that go far beyond our comprehension, and things that we must humble us in our minds and our lives to understand that this world is far more complex, and that the things that we think are true, that we exist in, are not really true, and that reality is bent, is skewed, and is far more complicated than we could think, and that we have to begin to ask questions to seek the answers for. So with that, I'd like to end this podcast. My name is Anthony Pensa, and this is the Love of Wisdom podcast. Please subscribe and follow me down on YouTube, and please watch some of my other videos and leave a comment. Thank you guys so much for listening again. Please subscribe. And I hope you guys have a great day.